This video is brought to you by CuriosityStream. If you sign up to CuriosityStream with the link in the description, you can watch next week's video right now, and you can also watch the latest episode of my ongoing series, Polyphonic Magazine. Oh, and if you like what I do, maybe think about subscribing. On June 5th, 1975, Pink Floyd's 5 months of tedious studio sessions were finally bearing fruit. The next day, they were set to head out on a month-long tour of the United States, so they were trying to finish up the mix of Shine On You Crazy Diamond. As they were fine-tuning the song, they noticed that someone was walking around the studio. He was a large man with a shaved head, shaved eyebrows, and he carried a toothbrush with him. Nobody in the band recognized him. They assumed he was somebody's friend, or maybe somebody from the label. The stranger wandered the studio for some time before Pink Floyd realized that it wasn't a stranger at all. It was Syd Barrett. This unexpected visit devastated the band members. Waters broke down in tears, and the band still talk about it to this day. It almost seemed like the fates were aligning to remind Pink Floyd just why they were making Wish You Were Here. Each member of Pink Floyd has a slightly different recollection of Syd Barrett's fateful visit, probably owing to the fact that Barrett actually returned to visit the studio on a few other occasions. But in all of the stories, one thing remains clear. Barrett was still mentally unwell. He claimed that he was ready to rejoin the band and offered his thoughts on Shine On, saying it sounded a bit old. But these visits to Abbey Road would be the last time that most of the band members saw Barrett. In 1978, he returned to Cambridge and moved in with his mother. He spent the rest of his life as a recluse, finding joy in gardening and painting. The last time anyone from Pink Floyd saw Barrett would be in the early 2000s, when Roger Waters bumped into him in a department store. Waters recounted to the Mirror, "We didn't speak. He sort of scuttled away." On July 7th, 2006, Syd Barrett died from pancreatic cancer at the age of 60. Nobody in Pink Floyd attended his funeral. But the impact that Barrett left on the band is undeniable, and Shine On You Crazy Diamond stands as a testament to that. Throughout the song, Pink Floyd used Barrett's story to explore their own growing anxieties about the world around them. Roger Waters explained in Wish You Were Here songbook, "Shine On's not really about Syd. He's just a symbol for all the extremes of absence some people have to indulge in, because it's the only way they can cope with how fucking sad it is. Modern life. To withdraw that completely." By every marker of the capitalist system, Pink Floyd had made it by the time they were making Wish You Were Here. They were filthy rich and adored by millions, living out all the material luxuries promised to them as children. And make no mistake, those luxuries are cushy. So are the luxuries that we have today, thanks to increased access to technology, entertainment, and knowledge. But in the end, those luxuries don't bring true joy or spiritual satisfaction. That kind of fulfillment comes from things that can't be monetized. It comes from friendship and community, from creative fulfillment and self-expression. These are the tenets of joy that Syd Barrett provided in Pink Floyd's early work. Because of Barrett's legacy, and because of how dark Pink Floyd's later work is, I think that a lot of people remember Barrett mostly as a dark figure. And there was a lot of darkness, but there was another side too. Barrett was a bastion of childlike joy, a symbol of the beauty of artistic innocence, and the freedom of naivety. I think that as Pink Floyd look back on Barrett, they see his loss not just as the loss of a friend, but as the loss of a better world that could have been. And the mysteries around Barrett only serve to exacerbate Pink Floyd's angst about that loss.
Nobody knows where you are, how near or how far.
For Roger Waters, this pressure, this despair, has him feeling like he could soon break just as Barrett did. Waters imagines losing himself, giving in and submitting to a delirious nostalgia. Rather than try to fight the winds of fate, he'll try to ride them.
And we'll bask in the shadow of yesterday's triumph, sail on the steel breeze. Come on, you boy child, the winner and loser. Come on, you miner for truth and delusion and shine.
On July 28, 1975, Pink Floyd finally finished recording Wish You Were Here. The entire process lasted nearly 200 days, interrupted by 2 American tours in the middle. It was an emotionally exhausting time, but the result was something profound. Pink Floyd were never solely about auditory experience, though. The album needed packaging that could hammer home the impact of the songs, so they turned to their good friends and frequent collaborators, Hipgnosis. Hipgnosis spent hours with the band, brainstorming concepts and themes for the presentation. Through this process, they honed in on one word as their guide: absence. Wish You Were Here was an album about absence, so Hipgnosis wanted to underline that in the packaging. Hipgnosis' Storm Thorgerson came up with the concept to make the actual album artwork absent. He would cover it in black shrink wrap. When it originally hit shelves, the iconic artwork of Wish You Were Here was shrouded. The album was only identified by a sticker on the front. This sticker shows a robotic handshake, underlying the themes that Pink Floyd explore in the middle section of the album. Behind that are depictions of the 4 elements. For Thorgerson, there was a significance to the number 4. 4 members of the band, and 4 words in the album's title. When you peeled off the sticker and the shrink wrap, you were met with an astounding piece of album artwork. The front and rear cover suggested the emptiness and underhandedness of the record industry, while the inner sleeve contained 2 liminal photographs depicting absence. When Hipgnosis showed the concept to Pink Floyd, they were enamored. It was a perfect visual companion to one of the most challenging pieces of Pink Floyd's entire career. In September, the band finally released the album. It debuted at number 3 on the British charts and climbed to number 1 the next week. Wish You Were Here became the band's fastest selling album, and while it was met with mixed reviews at first, it quickly grew to be recognized as the masterpiece that it is. In the minds of both David Gilmour and Richard Wright, Wish You Were Here was the best album that Pink Floyd ever recorded. But even the success of Wish You Were Here couldn't fix the cracks that had developed at the band's foundation. They would go on to release 3 more albums with this lineup, but something had changed. The tensions between Gilmour and Waters wouldn't go away, and the final movement of Shine On You Crazy Diamond would turn out to be the last thing that Wright wrote as a full member of Pink Floyd. This final movement is a funeral march. It was envisioned as a last musical eulogy for Barrett. And while it certainly accomplishes that, it also marks the last moment where Pink Floyd were truly in sync with each other. 7 months after the release of Wish You Were Here, Pink Floyd went into the studio once more to record the album that would become Animals. But they found mental illness tearing the band apart once again. Wright entered a deep depression and was barely present during the recording sessions. This depression would eventually lead to him being fired from the band. Mason and Gilmour were also distracted during the sessions, so Roger Waters stepped forth and became a more controlling member of the band. These dynamics shifted the sound and led to more and more fights until, eventually, Waters himself would leave Pink Floyd. Wish You Were Here contains the entire story of Pink Floyd within its grooves. It was born from looking back to their early days, to Syd Barrett. It found its footing speaking to the experiences the band felt when they were recording it, taking on the systems that they had to deal with, and expressing their own difficult emotions. And when we look at those feelings of absence and alienation, we can see the forces that would end up pulling Pink Floyd apart. Today, Wish You Were Here remains more relevant than ever. We live in an era of constant connection, and yet we have a loneliness epidemic, an absence epidemic. The modern world has made so many people feel the kind of sadness and emptiness that Pink Floyd talk about throughout the album. Wish You Were Here doesn't provide answers for these problems, but it does provide a sort of catharsis. And if there is a glimmer of hope in it, it's in the remembrance of Syd Barrett, of all that he was, and of all the possible futures that he represented. So fittingly, in the dying moments of Shine On You Crazy Diamond, Rick Wright pays one last homage, ending the album on a melody from one of Barrett's greatest, most optimistic works, See Emily Play. It's a final playful thought, and a reminder that the world could still be a place of joy and beauty. This video is just the latest in a series that I did that functions as a full companion to the Wish You Were Here album, running in real time alongside the whole thing. If you want to watch that series in full, uninterrupted by ads like these, you can do that on Nebula. And even though I did release it in parts on YouTube, I can tell you that this kind of thing would not happen without Nebula. This series was more ambitious than almost anything I've ever done, and the only reason I had the guts to try it was because I knew it could have a permanent home on Nebula. So if this is the kind of content that you want to support, you should check out Nebula. And of course, a great way to do that is by signing up to the Curiosity Stream bundle. If you sign up today, you'll get the holiday rate, which means 42% off an annual plan. That's the best deal you're going to get anywhere. That'll get you access to thousands of documentaries on a whole host of topics. One that I'd recommend is Red Elvis, the Cold War Cowboy. That tells the true story of a rock musician who defected to the USSR to become a Soviet superstar. And there's lots more beyond that. Go to curiositystream.com/polyphonic to check it out. That'll get you a great deal on CuriosityStream, and it'll also get you access to Nebula, which will help support more experimental projects like this one. And hey, thanks for watching. I appreciate you.